we could have done a better job as a nutrition community empowering people to kind of feel good about, the foods they're eating and the wholesomeness of beans, peas, lentils, dairy foods, lean cuts of beef, whatever they may be, whatever people enjoy, as opposed to saying, avoid sat fat at all costs and avoid all this sodium.
At the Table is a production of the Dairy Fuels Network, an Arizona-based multimedia platform dedicated to the people, stories, and science that live at the intersection of food, culture, and community. This series is produced in partnership with the Dairy Council of Arizona, made possible by Arizona dairy farmers who believe that real food conversations start with real relationships. I'm your host, Desi Abeda, registered dietitian, and this is At the Table. Dr. Chris Cifelli is a nutrition scientist. He's been at the National Dairy Council for 18 years. My guy wanted to be a doctor, but got humbled by the medical school application process and found nutrition by accident, the way a lot of us do, to be honest. Now he's the person who explains what happens inside your body when you eat the foods you love, through real research, peer-reviewed papers, and a body of evidence built study by study over decades. And when you ask him the hardest part of the work is, he doesn't say funding or politics or even publishing. He says it's the myths and the lies. The myths that good foods are bad, the fear messages wellness communities sent when we should have sent empowerment. He's been trying to correct that record for about 18 years now. This is At the Table, episode 5, the finale, with Dr. Chris Cifelli. Let's get it. Chris, for so many reasons, I'm so glad that we had a chance to connect. Our mini-series has actually taken a really cool turn into having some ongoing conversations, not only just about celebrating dairy and how it shows up, but also really celebrating the people who are on the ground doing the type of work. And so I gave you a brief of some of the possible questions. Now, I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to stay on script because something might come up where I'm like, hey, can you please walk me through that again? But I think one place that I really loved a lot of people who are at the table with us starting off questions is actually for you, like, how do you actually define what you do? Because I tried to do some extensive research and I'm like, this dude seems extremely cerebral. There's so many things that he's probably doing. Like, all right, I'm just going to shut up and allow him to describe like how he describes what he actually does.
The simple answer is just I'm a nutrition scientist, and I love trying to think about how when we eat foods, what happens to those foods, how they're broken down, how the body uses them, how they can, how deficiencies impact the systems. That kind of aspect of nutrition is what kind of got me into this. Because originally I had no idea what nutrition was. This wasn't even on my bingo card of career paths. And being, born and raised outside of Philadelphia, I'm Italian descent, food, big meals.
Are we celebrating Go Birds?
Go Birds. That's right.
Go Birds. Okay.
Go Birds. Yep. Food has always been it's such a connector. I love the name, At the Table, because that is where like conversations, good, bad, and otherwise happen. It's where memories kind of are made. But my day job, Desi, so I'm proudly work on behalf of the U.S. dairy farm families. We work for farmers as a checkoff organization, and our goal is to do research to understand how milk, cheese, yogurt, whey, and other dairy ingredients and bioactives, how they can impact health, where there's opportunities for them to help people on their wellness journey. And been at Dairy Management, National Dairy Council for 18 plus years, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think I really value the types of people who come into the scene in nutrition and also follow that up with like, this wasn't on my bingo card, because I too fell into it. I oftentimes joke with people that I wanted to be a pediatrician. I was looking at medical school and then basic chem happened. And I was like, all right, I'm not getting into medical school with a C in this right now. Take me back to the moment where you knew this was your type of work. Because something had to have changed. Like what is Chris's villain nutrition origin story?
Yeah, it's actually quite similar to yours. So I wanted to be a medical doctor. Wanted to be, that was when I went to Penn, so I did my undergrad and graduate at Penn State. And so my undergraduate was in, biology, physiology, and wanted to get into medical school. And, I was actually minoring in nutrition at the time just because, I like I said, I was always fascinated with food, and so much of it linked with the biochem and physiology classes I was already taking. And I had the genius idea that I would go to graduate school, get a master's in nutrition, and then reapply because, my thesis advisor or master's advisor would help me kind of fill that gap. I do some volunteer, kind of do all the things I didn't do. Probably it took a year, maybe less, before I was like, wow, this is actually a lot of fun. I kind of like this, the research, the lab work I was doing, and made the decision to kind of switch from a master's student to a doctoral candidate. And, the rest is kind of history.
I mean, I too fell in love with it on accident as well. Like I was kind of looking at like the cultural aspects of like how we come to the table, which thank you for the nod. When I was coming up with it, I was like, I kind of like how this feels because you're right. Like that's like our form of connection. I oftentimes like to think of food as like a really beautiful vessel to like connection, whether it's to culture, family, or whatever. What's the hardest part of the work that no one really talks about? What's the hot take, Chris?
I don't know if it's a hot take, but I think the hardest part is, and this is true not just of I think what I do with the Dairy Council and looking at milk is just the myths that are out there, and you probably deal with this around different foods. Yeah. I think the amount of discussions and conversations I've had with either other scientists or health professionals on whether or not, milk, cheese, yogurt in particular are just healthy or nutrient rich or good for you or whatever else. And, do they cause acne or do they cause inflammation? And, is the fat in there? But I mean, we could have done a better job as a nutrition community empowering people to kind of feel good about, the foods they're eating and the wholesomeness of beans, peas, lentils, dairy foods, lean cuts of beef, whatever they may be, whatever people enjoy, as opposed to saying, avoid fat at all costs and avoid all this sodium. That's been the hardest part, is trying to help people understand that, these foods, especially the core food groups, that we learned way back in elementary school are really good for you. They're not bad.
I mean, you're doing a lot on the research side. Like I think about like education, and I've had a tremendous opportunity to do a bunch of different tours and to see the true, like what I like to refer to as like creativity and ingenuity around making sure that like animal care is on top of the priorities, making sure that they are producing the best product by making sure that they uphold animal safety and everything else. And so I've oftentimes asked dairy farmers, like, what do you need from dietitians like myself? And it is overcoming or helping them to overcome some of the myths about dairy in this case, or about, some of the nutrition science, because as science communicators, like we're a part of how to get that across to the public. Are there pieces of research right now that you have recently done or are in the process of doing, obviously things that you can share that like really excites you about the work?
Yeah. I'll try to keep the list short because it's actually a really exciting time. I think one of the concepts that's a little bit more fleshed out, but is to your point, Doozy, like we need to kind of communicate it is understanding like the concept of the food matrix, so we don't, you get up in the morning, we don't eat just saturated fat or sodium or magnesium, right? We eat foods. Eat foods. And each of these foods has a different composition, different physical, chemical properties, so in a vacuum, right? Like we know that saturated fat will raise, LDL, the bad cholesterol. That's proven and all that stuff. But it's different if you look at, say, cheese versus maybe a Twinkie, and how they're going to impact it. Because, cheese has a special milk fat collaborative membrane. It's got a lot of protein. It's more slowly digested because of the casein. So this is true for all foods. You saw this with nuts and their fats, like how the fats in almonds and walnuts are available and different than the fats in other food sources and avocados. So it's not unique to dairy, but this idea of what we get out of the food is a lot of times determined by how we eat the food. And I think that's really important. And you're seeing some of these conversations about the impacts of processing and different stuff. And processing is super important for food safety and shelf life and all that stuff. But, there are, I think, differences when it comes to, say, nutrient absorption, like I said, between a piece of cheese and a Twinkie. So that's, I think, one area that, we've been working on that we're really excited about and trying to help educate people on that. You can feel good about drinking if you like a whole milk. It's that the fat in there is not going to give you a heart attack. It actually seems to be protective. So again, empowering people to choose these healthy foods. So that's one. I think the second area, and one we're starting to explore with research a little bit more robustly, is how foods impact the gut. And then the gut's linked to everything else. I think we you probably when you took your nutrition classes like me, we talked about digestion and how the food's broken down and how it's absorbed. But, you probably know this, I don't know how many of your listeners do. Like the gut is actually the largest immune organ. It has more immune cells are in the gut than in the rest of the body. And there's the nerve, right? The vagus nerve that connects straight from the gut all the way to the brain. So it's and it actually has the most neurons outside of the central nervous system. So it is this organ system that we have underappreciated in terms of how it really impacts the rest of the body. And that's without me even talking to you about the microbiome and all the trillions of bacteria and all the other stuff in there. So, we're really just starting to kind of explore how dairy foods, and in particular fermented dairy like yogurt, kefir, natural cheeses, can impact your gut health and improve some of its communication with this other systems. And then the third, and then I'll let you kind of fire away with questions, is I think one of the areas that keeps coming out, and as a parent of three, sleep is a topic from adolescents up. And, we're beginning to understand how nutrients like tryptophan in certain foods maybe can help people, or sleep routines. So, the side of food that kind of helps us with comfort, relaxation, mood, we're just beginning to kind of study that. And again, it's really exciting because, I think, we all feel good after Thanksgiving meal or,
Always.
but, there's a reason, there's a biological reason for that. And in terms of how that, the turkey in that time with all the tryptophans kind of helping boost our serotonin levels that kind of help us relax. So we're trying to, again, understand if, because as an animal source food, dairy's got a lot of tryptophan as well. So can you get those same results? So I think if you press me, those would be the three: the food matrix, helping people feel good about whatever choice of dairy they want to make, the gut and its central role in a lot of our body's processes, and then this idea of like mood and sleep and how food really can impact it.
I want to touch on the microbiome real quick because I was on a visit. I think it was I forgot where it was. It might have been UC Santa Barbara. You'll have to forgive me the exact place. But they were talking about the role of illegal saccharides on it being a byproduct on the gut microbiome. And when it was read back to me, I was like, this makes total sense. Like the body is really efficient at literally using everything. So why should people be intentional about their gut microbiome, especially as it pertains to the role of dairy in this case?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, if you think about your microbiome as your lawn, if you have a lawn, right?
I love it.
So the oligosaccharides or the fibers, as you just talked about, is the fertilizer. And so if you fertilize, you eat those types of starches that our body can't break down, but the bacteria do. It's like you're fertilizing your lawn. You have nice, green, healthy lawn. If you have a healthy lawn or gut, everything seems to work as best it can. Yeah. If you don't, you picture a lawn that is underwatered and under-fertilized, you get patches of weeds and stuff. And that can actually happen in your gut where you get what's called dysbiosis. So the normal ratio of the bacteria in your body that gets thrown out of balance. And you have all kinds, you can have all kinds of problems. So, the most common is things like traveler's diarrhea, where, you travel and you're kind of off schedule and you're eating different and your microbiome is off, and, you kind of get some side effects. But in severe cases, you can get things like C. difficile infections where they ramp up, and that can be, quite life-threatening in those cases. So, the simplest answer is, we want to maintain a healthy microbiome because it helps ensure that the rest of our gut and body is working kind of normally.
You've been 18 years in the game, researching a lot of this. So we know how dairy shows up for you in your work. What about in your life? You mentioned you have 3 kids. I have 2 kids. I know that each and every day that we sit down to have dinner, I sit down and it never fails. They both are like, "Daddy, can I have some milk, please?" And I'm like, why didn't you just ask me while I was already up? And so I know how it shows up for me as a dad. I'm curious for you, where does it authentically show up?
Yeah, it's a great question, and funny about, because that is totally what kids do.
Right.
So we have 2 boys and a girl, and all of them are good dairy consumers. The boys are big yogurt. Actually, we're all pretty big yogurt. They tend to still be eating a little bit more, just as teenage boys. We're chocolate milk drinkers. My daughter prefers the lower lactose versions, and the higher protein. So think like the Fairlife type milks.
Yeah.
The boys just drink conventional.
Just whatever.
And I think my wife and I are cheese yogurt people. We'll have milk with cereal and a few other things, but I think we indulge in the cheeses and the yogurts. But it's a part of our everyday routine. And tying it back to our last discussion, when you think about yogurt in particular, because it has those live and active cultures, the starter cultures, and some have added probiotics. That they have shown. There's really good study that was published in the journal Cell, probably going on 5 years ago now, where they compared fibers to fermented foods, and like yogurt, and those fermented foods also help maintain the microbiome. So just kind of getting that daily yogurt in there is going to help keep that grass well fertilized and healthy, which is really key again to your overall health.
I don't know if this is something that you've thought about, but what's been really interesting across having a bunch of different perspectives on paint the perfect picture of the type of work that you do. For you, if the science lands well, if you do your job and it gets communicated well, what is the perfect picture on your side? I don't know, paint that for us.
That's a hard one to answer. I think all of us got into nutrition for one form or another because we are interested in it, and we genuinely wanted ourselves and the people we work with to eat healthy, because it's such a foundation, right? Yeah. So I think if I was to paint a perfect picture, we'd get to the point where, we look at dairy foods and, we're not questioning, their relevance to a diet. We're not, questioning the fat content. You're just looking at dairy like people think of eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. That, this is a key component to us being healthy. And what I love about dairy, Desi, really is there is a dairy food for everybody. Right? You have milks of all fat content levels. You have flavored milks that are now lower in sugar than they were even 5 years ago. You have yogurts, you have Greek yogurts, you have Icelandic yogurt, skyr, you have kefir, you have cheeses, there is literally a dairy food for every person that for them to enjoy in the way they want to do. And it's going to fit into their cultural preferences and their tastes. It's just getting people to eat 3. I mean, I think my picture would be everybody would eat the recommendations. We'd be at a point where everybody's eating their 3 servings of dairy and feeling healthier for it.
Yeah. Just listen to the smart people. I usually tell a lot of people that I'm chatting with is listen, there's people that are doing the science that are much smarter than us, and we're just really relaying all the hard work that they've done. So jokingly, just listen to the smart people.
It's hard. I mean, it is hard. I mean, right now with, emergence of AI and Google searches. I mean, all that stuff is great. I mean, I'm not here to say that we shouldn't use it, but it does, you do need to go to the sources sometimes, read the papers, or, if you're not a scientist, or you struggle with them, like a National Dairy Council, we have, resources that kind of help synthesize that evidence and make it easier for everybody to understand. We provide all the references, so I think you could go to the right places to kind of find that information.
There's a reason why the information right now feels noisy. I always tell clients AI is a really nice tool, but AI is subject to just making things up. So like having a professional who understands what they're doing to look at your diet, to assess, to come up with ways to bridge that gap is always a really good opportunity. I mean, outside of AI, like why else do you feel like basic science and scientific communication, it feels noisy right now, just in your opinion?
I think, science requires patience. And the goal I think sometimes all of us are guilty of forgetting the scientific method requires kind of doing a study, asking a question, testing that question, reporting the results, and then, building on to the next. But a key part of that is sharing those results and letting other people try to replicate them. And too often, I think sometimes we see a exciting study, whether it be in cell or animal or even human, and we run with it like this is the next big thing. I mean, how many times do we see a story on a certain food and whatever disease? One day it's curing cancer, the next day it's causing you to have a heart attack. I think some of it is because we live in a much faster paced environment where information is at our ready, and science just doesn't work like that. Like, just for us at National Dairy Council, we have funded over 80. There's been 80 peer-reviewed publications on full-fat dairy published in the last 20 years. That's just the ones we funded. I mean, if you go on to PubMed and search all of them, you're talking in the hundreds, if not thousands. I mean, so one new study is not going to change the body of evidence that kind of shows that, whole milk, cheese, full-fat yogurt can fit into healthy eating patterns and reduce your risk for chronic disease. And I get it. I get why headlines, what headlines are needed and how the news is now. But I think it is making it confusing for people. Like, should I eat an egg today or is the egg killing me? And it's, milk, I guess is a good example. Yeah. And that's why, so experts like yourself dietitians who understand that and can personalize it. I married a dietitian. My wife's a dietitian. So,
oh, really? I did not know this. Nice.
Yeah. So I can tell you all about what the food does, but you guys are the experts in helping people to really understand like how to bring it to life, culinary, like eat it, get all the nutrients. And, I think, you all, the dietitians, also need to play a bigger role in, say, hospitals and other settings because, the doctors, the nurses, they're just not trained for that stuff. So, I think that's a huge gap and a huge opportunity to kind of bring nutrition more to life and make it more, make dietitians more compatible with your healthcare professionals.
Right now, we're in this really cool phase where people can be creative about their messaging. So whether it is showing up on a podcast or a newsletter or a website or things like that, like I always point people in the direction of like, go follow that person. They know what they're talking about. So in reference to that, Chris, I got a couple zany questions that I've been asking all of our guests here in our mini series. But before we get there, I so want to thank you for your time. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm not. I will admit, I'm trying to get better about being found. I am on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to find me. Obviously, and people can reach out to me, through National Dairy Council Dairy Management. We share both names. But LinkedIn is probably the best place to kind of find me and tag me.
Beautiful. All right. Well, now you're in this mini series. So yet again, another piece.
Yes.
So this will be great. All right, Chris, I'm going to hit you with 4 questions. I have not done a great job of not reacting. I'm not supposed to, but sometimes your answer might cause a visceral reaction within me. All right. So first question, what is the rest of your life in 5 words?
Oh boy. As many experiences as possible.
I love that. All right. Next one. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Defend it.
No, it's a hot dog. It's not a sandwich. A sandwich has to be between 2 loaves of bread. It's a hot dog.
All right, good. Smash or pass chocolate milk as a recovery drink for sports and performance?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. One of the best.
One of the best.
I mean, science backed. I'll say hands down, science backed. One of the best.
I love it. I love it. And then last one, one food that tells your whole story.
Spaghetti. It's tough. It's spaghetti or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I mean, I say spaghetti just because Italian heritage makes me think of my mom, my grandmom, all that stuff. But like there is nothing like a good PB&J with a cold glass of milk. I mean, that is. I mean, I remember reading that story. I don't know if you follow the NBA, but how many NBA players eat like the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
Yeah,
and stuff. I mean, it
was a crazy amount.
Are you? So I'll ask you one back. Are you a grape or strawberry jelly person?
I'm a grape, but I've kind of taken it to the next level. Like people might think I'm psychotic, but like I don't care. You can't change my mind. I'll put like sliced banana in there or like actual fruit and smash it. But what I'll do is I'll dip the peanut butter and jelly in the milk because it's like a really good cookie. So I always tell athletes, people that I'm working with, never underestimate the power of a peanut butter and jelly. And if you want to throw an add in, like do it with milk and dip it.
Yeah. Get your hydration with all the benefits coming with the peanut butter and jelly. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Chris, this has been great. Thank you so much for being at the table. Really appreciate your time, man. And go Birds. Can we say that? Go Birds.
Yeah, go Birds. And the pleasure was all mine. And hopefully we can do this again soon.
So that's 5 episodes, 5 conversations with 5 people who could have put their degrees on the wall and left it there. Instead, they walked into rooms like this one, sat across from a microphone, and talked about the work like it actually mattered. Because it absolutely does. Stephen, Christy, Courtney, Chris, and everyone at the Dairy Council of Arizona and the United Dairymen of Arizona who believed a conversation could carry a message further than a flyer. Cindy and Lauren, thank you. This series exists because you trusted the creative. And I want to say something to the dietitians and health professionals listening, and to anyone in this field who has worked with the brand or thought about it or been told to play it safe. Creativity is not the opposite of credibility. It's how credibility finds new rooms. The podcast, the videos, the reels, the late editing nights, the scripts. None of this is extra. This is the work. This is how what we know becomes what people actually do. How an idea moves from a peer-reviewed paper into a family's kitchen. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. You have to be willing to sit across from a microphone or a camera or an idea and say that thing that actually matters. Clearly, confidently, and in a way that someone can actually hear. This series is proof that dietitians can be storytellers and that brands can make space for that. And when you trust the creative, the message goes further than you ever thought it could. To the next RD who gets a call from a brand and thinks, I don't know if I can do this, you absolutely can. And it's going to be more meaningful than you expected. Thank you for being at the table.